Welcome back, guys. My name's Alex. That's Eileen. And you guys are watching Straight to Chicane podcast. And this is a podcast that pretty much focuses on Formula One, the drama, the races, and everything that's in between. We've taken some time off. This is now our season 4, first episode. And welcome back, Eileen. How's the off season been?
Good.
Yeah.
It went by slow, but it went by fast, I feel like.
It did. It was
97 days.
97 days. It felt like forever, but it did come quick.
97 days from Abu Dhabi, but there was a lot of stuff that happened that I think kept us entertained.
Honestly, there's so much stuff that we kind of probably should have done some other podcasts for, and I apologize, but we have real lives, and we're just, honestly, if you've just first time seeing us, we're huge fans of Formula One, hence most of the gear, and we try to travel and go see a couple races throughout the year, depending on each season, and I think we just kind of got to talk about everything that happened in all the off seasons. There's, like you said, team changes. Ferrari's got Hamilton. I don't know.
Are you okay?
No, I'm not. I'm not okay.
There's a lot to unpack.
Yeah.
I mean, we missed the livery launches. We've got new team names.
Yep.
We didn't have driver lineup changes this year, which was obviously the first time in history that we didn't have anybody changing teams.
Yeah.
But obviously, before the season started, the news dropped for Hamilton going to Ferrari in 2025.
I mean, biggest news of the decade.
I swear to God. So it happened on February 1st, and I think probably everyone in the F1 community, I mean, we saw the rumors last year where he was potentially going, and it was like, no, I'm never leaving Mercedes. He signed a 2-year contract, so we, thought, 1 + 1. And it was February 1st. I swear, I woke up and I'm like, there's no way this is true. I messaged you. I'm like, there's no way this is true. And I was at work and it's like, is it April Fool's Day? Like,
I'm like, not
he's
even
not
close.
going to Ferrari.
Not even close.
And I mean, obviously, I think everybody at this point has had time to kind of process that he's leaving and he's going to Ferrari. But there was so many things. I mean, he went for his seat fitting for the W15, and then the next day the news dropped. So it was like, oh, he saw the W15, and he's like, I'm out of here. See ya.
Yeah, I think he saw something, or like you said, he saw something he didn't like. There's something bad in that organization.
I have a lot of thoughts about it, and obviously we've had a couple weeks to process, And first of all, before the news even came out, I was like, everyone always talks about the best driver pairing on the grid. Yeah. And Toto was like, oh, well, we've got the best driver pairing on the grid.
Sometimes they do, yeah.
I was like, I feel like Charles and Lewis would be like the best driver pairing. And so I'm excited. I'm looking forward to them being together.
Well, and there's been a lot of rumors throughout the last few years of Lewis possibly getting what's the word I'm missing here?
I don't know. What are you trying to say?
He would be not going on dates with Ferrari throughout the years.
Oh, he is being courted.
Courted, thank you. Yes, courted. There's definitely been rumors, and so whether those rumors are true or not, now we know they might have been.
I think he has a good relationship with Fred, obviously.
Well, because of past history, for sure. Right.
And I think, he has probably been more open to it over the last 2 years, just given the situation at Mercedes. Now, for me personally, this doesn't mean anybody has to feel the same way. I think something has happened in the organization at Mercedes. I think that since the get-go, and this is my personal opinion, but that's what we're here to say. Since Bottas got essentially terminated, got fired, and we're bringing in George, I just feel like things just haven't been the same there. They haven't been on the same page. Now, remove the car situation, because we know, obviously, they went in the wrong direction with the car.
But did they? After what we saw with what Red Bull's doing with their...
Well, that's a whole nother story.
Yeah.
But, James Allison wasn't working on the car those years. Now he's back.
Correct.
And the
car was positioned... The drivers were far forward, and Lewis definitely complained and was not happy about any of that, among other issues.
I feel like last year, and there's a lot more coming out now, but I feel like last year, the 2 races where they didn't show up, or they weren't there for his podiums, Singapore included, where they were consoling George.
Yeah.
And then they came together because they didn't get on the same page from a strategy perspective in Qatar. And Lewis was on softs and George was on mediums. Like, obviously, if you put a driver out on softs and everyone else around him is on a harder compound, you would expect them to be challenging for the overtake.
Yeah.
Whatever. And then just the contract piece. So it was like now Toto's out there saying essentially, oh, well, we didn't want to give Lewis a 2-year contract or more because we wanted to keep our options open for Kimi Antonelli.
Which is a guy
Which is the future Max Verstappen.
Could be.
That's the rumor.
He's skipped over Formula 3 and is his first year in Formula 2.
Right.
And he's got a lot to learn in Formula 2. And I watched some of the races. I got to rewatch the main race. I don't know how he did, but during the sprint, he was near the back. And that's where he qualified as well for the main race. But we'll see. Time will tell with him.
No, and I understand that. Like, I mean, Lewis is an older driver, but he's also been with the team for 10 plus years. Still performs.
Yeah.
Still was challenging for P2 last year. Mm-hmm. And, typically could perform very well every single weekend, and you are putting all your eggs in a basket with a new driver who's won one race, has made, mistakes. And listen, no harm, no foul to George. I mean, I think he's got talent, but I think, you've got a driver who does more for the sport than.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. Let's talk about him moving to Ferrari and like just how shook the community was from it. So it just seems unusual. I mean, and he wanted an ambassadorship, and they said no. And so I just feel like there's more to the story.
There's definitely probably
Like
more to the story.
there's more going on behind the curtains than we know about.
Yeah, probably correct.
So. But yeah, so I guess that was the biggest news off season.
I would say pretty big news was Guenther Stein. He getting fired is pretty big news as well. It was like last minute too, it felt like.
Well, it's like essentially right before Lewis's news.
It was just like back-to-back news, and it's like, oh, well, we're kicking off the season early here.
Well, it was like silly season was dropping crazy. So it was like we had Guenther Steiner getting terminated, which everyone was like, oh my God, what's going to happen with Drive to Survive?
Right.
So we had that. We had Charles re-signing an undisclosed amount for his contract renewal.
So what do you think that is? Like 4 years, 3 years, something like that?
I feel like 2-3 years.
Yeah.
Lando, same thing. Signed his contract to stay with McLaren.
That's because they all knew about Lewis possibly moving, so they wanted to lock in those
I don't
guys.
think anybody knew. I mean, Lewis keeps saying, I didn't tell anybody. I didn't even tell my parents or his brother until the announcement was made. The rumor is that Toto is the one who released the news to the media.
Possibly.
Shady.
Well.
But, I think Lando is so committed to McLaren, and I think that he's so comfortable there.
Okay.
That, even when we watched Drive to Survive, that was a storyline. It was like, would he consider going to Red Bull, and the rumors from last year and, all of that stuff. So, I mean, there's a lot of seats open this year. Sergio Perez is included, but I think Lando's comfortable there. He's the lead driver now. And I think most drivers would be intimidated by having to line up next to Max Verstappen.
I think anybody would be right now.
And they're really good friends, so.
They are like a group of those guys are all, because they all came up together. They were karting together and everything like that. And
right.
So you know.
Like would Lando and Max, if they were teammates, be like Nico and Lewis?
No, they'd be battling kind of like what Charles and Leclerc are doing today.
Charles is Leclerc.
I know. Charles and Carlos doing today.
No, I know.
They're battling back and forth.
I understand that, but what
know?
I'm saying is I think that Lando and Max are very good friends. They're like best friends. They literally say they're best friends. So putting it into context, yeah, of course they would be battling on track, but when does it turn to a point where it's the Nico versus Lewis 2016 battle where the friendship turns sour?
As soon as it becomes...
Because everybody wants to be a world champion.
They all do. Everyone
So, it's like, okay, where are we at this point? So I think partially Lando's comfortable, partially, nervous to go up against somebody like Max, who's like an unstoppable force at this point in his career. So it's interesting. But so those, some new contracts. I mean, I think We got the 2 new teams. We've got the Red Bull. We've got the RB. So we've got Red Bull, and now we have Cash App, Visa Cash App Racing Bulls, better known as VCAR, better known as RB.
Right.
I can't call them RB.
Why can't you call them? The rest of the world is calling them RB.
I understand, but RB is Red Bull.
A Red Bull is Red Bull. RB is Racing Bull.
Racing Bulls, plural. I don't know. It's hard to say, and then I don't know, like, what do we call them? It's the same thing with Sauber. Are they Steak F1 or are they Sauber?
Everyone in the F1 community is calling them Sauber or Steak, I guess.
Right. So those are our 2 new teams, pre-existing but rebranded.
Well, they're all pre-existing, really.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot of, like, I swear, you going into the off season, it was like, oh, not much could potentially happen, and then it was just like bomb after bomb after bomb.
It was.
We haven't even talked about the biggest one yet.
Go ahead.
I mean, then obviously the biggest one was Lewis, but we've got Hornergate going on in the backseat.
So that's the elephant in the room right now. That's kind of what's happening in the social media world, the X world, the Twitter world, if you still call it Twitter like I do. That's what's happening. Like the Hornergate is a thing. He has done some alleged inappropriate text messaging. He's tried to pay her off.
And allegedly.
Then there was a mass amount of an email that went to a mass amount of people, including podcasters, influencers, journalists,
team principals, the FIA, the governing body.
Yeah, so people are asking more questions, and they need more answers because they're sponsors.
The investigation kind of came out of nowhere. Like, no one really knew what it was for, but Red Bull's parent company, Red Bull Racing's parent company.
So you think that was a leak as well?
Started a internal investigation. They hired somebody to do it, and it was like the beginning of February.
Okay.
And, we saw things here. We saw rumors he was going to step down. We saw rumors that people were, telling him and it's in his best interest to step down. We saw the rumors that he had offered 650,000 euros to, whoever this person that's accusing him of. We really didn't know what the rumors were for. It was like, one was like his leadership style. Like he was mean and direct and like a dictator or whatever. And then another one was he was inappropriate. There was inappropriate conversations, happening with a female employee.
Yeah.
So the investigation happens. We're going into preseason testing. We're going into race 1, and Red Bull, and they make this announcement that he's cleared, and that's it.
Very subtly, just he's cleared.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's there's not enough evidence,
Nope.
and at this point, it is what it is. And so, whoever released the Google Drive, whoever woke up and seriously chose violence that day and was like, I'm sending an email blast. I'm not happy with this investigation. I'm not happy with this outcome. I'm sending all this out. Sent it out like during free practice 2.
They did.
It just dropped to everybody in the paddock. And it's been like a circus ever since.
It is. And it's a shame that not a lot of people in the Formula One paddock world are. Well, you see some comments. Like you've seen what McLaren's
Zach Brown and Toto.
I don't know why I keep drawing a blank on people's names right now.
I don't know.
But yeah, Zach Brown, he's very...
Brown is always very outspoken when it comes to Red Bull.
Yeah.
I mean, he's the one who wrote the letter about the catering cost and was like, this is baloney, which I think he has some valid points. Like, I think he does. And, at the end of the day, him and Toto, allegedly, like just the 2 of them, I'm sure there's other people that feel the same way, but they feel that there needs to be more transparency for the sport. And it's like, I agree with that. I think at the end of the day, it's bringing a spotlight to the sport in a negative manner. And I think that just saying, okay, the investigation was completed behind closed doors, we don't, think that there's anything additional here and we're going to move forward type of thing. Like, there's a lot of question marks that people have. And when you have this multi-million-dollar sport that's worldwide with these, big claims and big accusations, I think there needs to be a little bit more transparency.
Right. And look, Ford is sponsoring Red Bull. They're going to be their engine supplier.
Right.
There's going to be a lot of questions. They already, like you said, I don't know if you mentioned it yet or not, but they sent an email asking they want to know what's going on.
They released a statement about it, and this was prior to, obviously, them saying.
So do you think then, because they released that statement, they got the clear, it's all swept under the rug, and they're going to be able to keep all these images, whether they're legitimate or not?
I mean, I would be surprised if we don't hear from Ford, just in regards to the latest and greatest of this part, because obviously Red Bull did their own internal investigation and everything was fine, but then now all these screenshots have come out and there hasn't really been a conversation about what the next step or what's happening next is.
Right.
All we know is that Horner is denying the claims. Again, he said, I already said I'm declining to comment essentially once the Google Drive came out. And I am going to continue to say I deny these allegations. And what we've seen, obviously, is third party on social media. Do we know if the text messages are legit or not? I mean, there's some eyebrow raising and question marks that should come with some of these things. And there's photos and there's this and that. But, I mean, there's a lot of people saying, oh, they're doctored or it's AI or it's this. And it's like, I mean, really? Is somebody looking for that much of a downfall? I think that there's some legitimacy.
Yeah, I think there's both. I think some people are looking for that much of a downfall, and I think there is some legitimacy. I think also AI is something that can totally be real. I don't know. And honestly, even what I've seen throughout Twitter, I don't even know if that's really what was sent out or not. I can't even verify that.
Right, we can't. So, bottom line, it's still a pending investigation. I think
it is, and like I said, it'll continue to be the elephant in the room until something really truly happens. But until then, he's gonna show up with his wife, and they're gonna.
Oh my God, yeah. I wonder if she was even planning to come to this race weekend, or if because she just flew in yesterday, and it was like,
maybe.
The photo of the day from this morning was those two coming in hand through the paddock entrance, and then like holding on to each other at the podium ceremony. So, I mean, I think that I'm like, okay, really, like, it's a little bit over the top. You're doing it on purpose, clearly.
It's for PR, for sure.
Yeah, like his PR manager was like, oh, you need to get Jerry here right away, and you guys need to show that you're a united front, and that, not just that you deny the allegations, but that she has your back. I mean, and there's a lot of stuff in the media, like The Sun posting, Daily Mail, all sorts of people posting about it. So there's a lot of people that have something to say about the situation. But I feel bad for the drivers. I said it all weekend. I'm like, what? I mean, like, to have to go into the first race weekend and you're talking about your team principals, like, sexting allegations in your PR.
And honestly, you can speak more on this than I can, but Max was asked a question during the press conference, and he was able to kind of brush it off pretty well.
Yeah.
And I think he said it right, and I think you would agree that, it's their focus on being able to win another championship and be as dominant as they are. And clearly, they are as dominant as they are. And Max was not troubled by however.
If there's one thing about Max that I think everyone knows is he's not going to get caught up in all the BS. He's like, basically what he said was, he was like, the question was, do you look at your team principal differently because of all these allegations? And he was like, listen, me and my side of the garage, like, is all he could speak for. My engineers and my, team, we're here to do a job. Like, we're here to make sure the car is fast. I'm here to make sure that I do a good job when I get in. And that's that.
Yeah.
Is that his way of kind of like saying, I don't have an opinion on it, or he feels some type of way? Potentially. But I think he answered it the most respectful way.
Yeah, and I think they got a job to do, and that's a tough situation, and I think they're going to need to do something.
They're going to need to do something.
If it's real and those are real, then something's going to truly need to happen, because at least in this country, nowadays, that kind of stuff is not allowed and not tolerated.
Right.
And I think with their global partners and U.S. partners, I think that's an issue that they're going to have to deal with.
I think it brings a lot of negative light to Red Bull, essentially, and could they lose other potential partners? I mean, it's tough. It's a tough one.
Yeah. All right.
So.
I think we've had enough.
But stay tuned.
About
More to
Christian Horner,
come
'cause I
on
know how much
Hornergate.
I know how much you love Christian Horner and Hornergate right now.
I love Horner.
So honestly, like we kind of didn't even talk about preseason testing and kind of like we should. And I think that's the thing is like we missed a whole lot and there's so much to talk about. We could probably spend another 20, 30 minutes just on that. And I think we should touch on it just a little bit. So sandbagging. Do you think any of the teams were sandbagging during preseason testing?
Well, I mean, I don't think that they won't call it sandbagging, but they'll call it like, obviously, everyone's testing different stuff. Everyone is testing different fuel loads. Everyone's testing different engine modes. So yeah, they're hiding their cards.
Yeah, I think you had to hide them until pretty much qualifying of this weekend.
You know, I think going into preseason testing, the big thing was that Red Bull came this year with a completely new car design. And they took some inspiration from Mercedes zero pod concept, but it's not a zero pod concept. It has pods. So everyone that keeps saying it's Mercedes car and they're making it work, it's not the same car.
Sure.
I don't know why I just got so mad.
It kind of is. It is and it isn't.
Supposedly by Suzuka, they're going to have a zero pod concept or something, but who knows? But they did come to this season with a completely new design car from last year. And Adrian Newey said, we can't just show up and build off the car we had last year because they knew everyone was going to copy it.
That's right.
Which the majority of the field pretty much did.
Yeah.
So preseason testing, in my opinion, still looked like Max was going to be killing it. I mean, everyone was like, okay, race pace, Red Bull looked great.
He had really good race pace throughout the whole entire preseason testing. That is right. He had the best race pace, and it seemed like they were hiding maybe just a little bit because we also saw like Mercedes also kind of like holding back exactly what they were going to do because we started seeing what they could do come here practice.
Right.
When they started elevating, and they were like, oh well, they definitely had engines up. They had modes up, you know. Yeah. And so, yeah. I mean,
it's funny how it's like you can't even trust. Like, we went into qualifying this weekend, and I didn't know who was going to be good. I was like, I have no idea.
And I'll add that I don't even know if we still know who is good for the whole entire season behind Max because all the teams.
It's like Max and everyone else.
All the teams.
Not Red Bull, it's Max.
It is. Right now, he's in a league of his own.
It's the same, yeah.
We will see next week in Jeddah. However, they had so much time to prep for this particular track, this street conditions. They knew kind of what the temperatures were going to be. You know what I mean? With the preseason testing being there, they're leading up into this time. So they've had a lot of time on this particular track. They got a lot of data for this particular track. So they should all really perform the best that they could do at that track. And I mean, you know, and so they had Max's car for sure dialed in perfectly for the race. He wasn't super happy for qualifying or going into like practice 3. I think there was some issues. But the race he had.
I mean, I don't think he was happy like practice 1.
Yeah, he wasn't because there were some upshift issues and stuff like that. But I'll tell you, like the car was dialed in completely for the race. He was pulling away from. He was over a second after lap 1, and now with our newer rules,
like lap 2.
Yeah,
But
okay.
still.
So he was at 9
there was-
9/10 of a second.
Yeah, there was such a big gap going into lap 4. So it is what it is. Max has started off the season the same way he finished last year. You know, new car, no problem.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter for him.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
He's now won 8 races in a row, and he's on a trajectory. I mean, I know it's race 1, but he's going to break his record from last year.
He could.
You know, and so
not.
we're all hoping for some good battles.
And honestly, there was like the rest of the cars were really stayed kind of close, and there was some good battles.
And the qualifying was good. I mean,
It was.
Q1 there was only a second between P1 and P20, so that was good.
I wish there was still a requirement with tires, like the free for all and like some tire, you know, like it used to be for anyone that doesn't really watch Formula One. A few years ago, whatever tire they were on, they qualified into Q2 going into Q3, that's the tire that they had to save and start the race on.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. I kind of wish they did something similar. I don't know if they need to go do that. I didn't mind that one. I kind of like that one because it made Q2 very, very important for 15 of the drivers instead of just maybe like 10, where like a lot of the new talk nowadays is like Q1 everyone starts on hards, Q2 everyone's on mediums, and qualifying 3 is all on softs, right?
Well, they tested that.
They
last
did,
year.
and I'm like,
No, I mean, I agree. I think it's weird. I said it today. I think it's weird that they're all on softs at the beginning. Like, it's strange. But, I mean, obviously today, it's a ton of different strategies. People coming in after 10 laps. Max ran the softs a lot longer, So it's still, I mean, there's still a lot mixed in.
Yeah, so that's all about that. So to kind of, I guess, finish up the the preseason testing stuff that we were kind of talking about. The big thing to take away from is there wasn't any yellow flags. No, really, there was some red flags, but the red flags were due to, again, the drain covers of now a racetrack pumping up. But I guess they got that all figured out. There was no issues during the race this weekend.
Yeah.
All right, are we missing anything before we fully move into the weekend here? I feel like we talked about Guenther. Sad.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about Drive to Survive.
Drive to Survive, we should talk about it. Thank you. I kind of almost forgot about that.
I mean, we've already had, so we watched it, of course, immediately with the entire population of the world as soon as it dropped. And, how fast can you watch Drive to Survive?
Well, I mean, it's fast.
And then we watched it again. And I'm sure we'll watch it like 10 more times. We had to rewatch all the old seasons of Drive to Survive
Not all.
going
We started
into
from
it.
season 4.
Yeah, but, I think they did. It gets a lot of criticism every single time. Like, I think Drive to Survive, like, they just, like, want to hate on it. Like, they want to hate on Drive to Survive. And I hated on it, like, 1 year, 2. Like, I hated on it after the 2021 season because I felt like they just had so much cinema to, like, produce from that season, and it just...
And you don't think they did it justice?
And they didn't do 2021 justice. So I was like, okay, I was mad about that. But then I'm like, you know what? There's so much more going on in the sport. But a couple highlights for me with it was we missed, like, the whole Qatar, like, weekend. And I just feel, I'm like, we're, like, sporting McLaren. That weekend was crazy in itself. Like, drivers passing out, throwing up in their helmets, DNFing the race.
Very much big deal for Formula One. Like, drivers not even wanting to make it, blacking out, going to the
crazy stuff.
To the medic after.
People stroll almost passing out into the ambulance, all that stuff.
Absolutely.
And we missed that whole context. We missed Piastri winning the race. We missed Max winning the championship there. Like, we missed all this stuff. We missed the George and Lewis drama with the epic shot of Lewis crossing the track with George driving by in the background. Like, there was so much there that, like, we just didn't even go there. And so, I was bummed to not see that. And I just, they did do Max a little bit of justice, but I just feel like, I mean, for as dominant as he was last season, I felt like there could have been, like, a whole episode on, like, Red Bull domination.
There could have been, but we did 2 episodes of Alpine.
Yeah, we didn't need the 2 episodes of Alpine. Like, I get it. Otmar got sacked, and Esteban and Pierre don't like each other. We all know that.
Yeah.
I think we could have clumped that into one episode. I think we could have, talked about, like, all the records that Red Bull won. We could have talked about, Max just being an unstoppable force. He made, like, no errors the entire season.
Very few, if any.
I liked that they did, like, the red versus black as the final, episode, because I felt like that was, like, end of season, like, hype where it was so close. And Ferrari, essentially would have won if they didn't get screwed over by the drain cover in Vegas and the 10-place grid penalty. And so I feel like they did a good job, and I feel like for people who don't watch F1, I think it's a good, like, representation to, like, get you enticed.
I would agree. So I started a new job recently, and these colleagues I have at work that work in other departments and stuff like that, they all are Formula One fans, and some of them got into it because they are motorsports people and they've been in it for years. Another guy is a guy that he just watched Drive to Survive and kind of slowly got into it and is still learning and asks lots of really good questions. And I would say, yeah, I think it's a really good helping hand to help people get into it.
Yeah.
It's a good sport to watch. It's on all the benefits that I like about it. It's on early during the weekends. It's intense. I don't care about some of the drama on Twitter and stuff like that. So I need her to keep me up, but and I think other people feel the same way. For the most part or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's a really good avenue for people to come in and watch.
I think it's good. I think people, and I see it a lot on social media. I think people, and us included, you're disappointed because you've watched the season, you know everything that happened. You know all the details from every race weekend. I wish that we could see more races. Like, I do feel like the last couple of years we go to, like, Bahrain, we go to Monaco, we go to Abu Dhabi.
It's the same sport.
It's the same places, like, every episode. And, so I do feel like I wish we saw more. But at the end of the day, like, it's however many months that we're fitting into 10 episodes. Like, we got to give them a little bit of credit. We all loved Drive to Survive, but we also all love to hate on it, I think, in a sense, too, as fans. But it has really helped build the popularity. And let's not all be a bunch of assholes and, like, hate on people who get into the sport because of Drive to Survive.
Yeah, for sure.
I think
that's a great thing.
Exactly.
It might make things a little bit more expensive, especially here, but it's still, I like talking about it with colleagues.
Yeah.
And when I wear clothes like this and like that or whatever, it's like people ask, or I ask when I see a hat randomly, and I think that's cool.
It's like seeing an Easter egg in real life. You're like, oh my God, Formula One.
Yeah.
And you want, like, the conversation to keep going. So, but no, I think they did a good job. I would have liked to see Qatar. I would have liked to see, some more things. But, overall, I was entertained.
Okay, me too. I was gladly entertained. All right, so we talked about Drive to Survive. We've talked about Horner. We've talked about Guenther. We've talked about
Lewis.
We've talked about the drivers staying, all the teams for the first time ever, really. No driver changes, although a lot of contracts are up this year. So this is about to be
12 contracts up this year.
It's going to be crazy. Hopefully we'll see some new drivers.
It's going to be the silliest season.
She's thinking someone's going to retire. You said...
Listen,
I think Alonso's going to retire? I don't know.
I said Alonso could potentially retire. He made the comment this weekend. He said, I need to think about what I want to do. At this point, he's the oldest driver on the grid, 41, going to be 42 this year. He's in a relationship. I mean, they're traveling all year. There's 24 races this year.
It's a lot.
He's like, this is a demanding calendar. He's accomplished a lot of things. I think it depends on how Aston Martin does this year, or if he gets signed to Mercedes.
There you go.
But we shall see.
We shall see.
It's going to be silly.
Yeah, it's going to be a while, and there will be a lot to talk about throughout the season.
Yes.
I think now we can move on to the actual race weekend and talk about practices and some qualifying and maybe the race if we have some time. I think the race was kind of a lull.
The race was boring.
Yeah, so I think we can...
It was not a cracking start to the season, okay? We didn't have a whole lot of action. It
was just a little disappointing because how fast Max was able just to get away and just run away with it. And it's like, that's the last thing I wanted to see on race one, but it just,
I think we were excited because, there wasn't much with practice other than there was a different top three during every single session.
There was.
We really didn't know. Red Bull had a couple issues in FP1, with both cars. They weren't happy with the upshifts, which Max hasn't been for like years. But we just really didn't know what it was going to look like going into qualifying. And, Q1, like I said, was only a second between P1 and P20. We knew Alpine was going to be a tractor, like legit, like a tractor.
Okay, so speaking of that, some people knew, and I called it, and I should have put it out in the social media world.
It was out all preseason testing.
I said it right from the preseason testing. They're going to be the slowest team. I think I even asked you, do you think they're going to be the slowest team? I know I asked some people at work, like, I'm going to put it out there that Alpine's the slowest. They need to have the biggest flip and switch.
They need to have the McLaren of 2023.
They do, because they are on a slippery slope right now.
Yeah.
Compared to what Haas and in particular Nico can do and what he did for qualifying, he looked really good, and that Haas was performing really well for a single lap run. Now, qualifier for the race run now, that's yet to be determined. Although there was an incident that happened. So.
I feel like Haas always kind of turns up okay in Bahrain, though. Like the last few years, they typically qualify okay.
Again, they've had the most time to be on track there,
right.
so they got the cars dialed in the most best they could be.
Yeah, but the new team principal was like, "Oh, we're going to be the worst car come Bahrain."
Yeah, and then he grinned that one off. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they still weren't that great, but they looked, better than some of the other teams. So.
Yeah, and I think as we saw practice and stuff kind of progressing this weekend, we did start seeing the actual fluctuation of where some teams were going to start ending up. I was kind of excited for Ferrari and for Mercedes because they were kind of up there on each of the practices, and we saw where some of the teams were falling down, where Alpine was ending up and things like that. And
yeah, like Aston Martin was looking good, McLaren was looking okay. Like Lando was on like a different type of strategy, but. Everyone, was pretty close relatively.
Right.
So going into the race day today, I even picked Leclerc, and all last season I think I picked Verstappen to win every race.
I was like, I don't know.
And I'm like, you know what? I'm putting it out in the energy. I'm putting out that I'm Delulu for a different person than Max to win. But Leclerc looked good. He would have been on pole position with his Q2 lap time yesterday, but obviously, that's the way the cookie crumbles. So I thought, hey, there's going to be a chance. There's going to be some good battles. I don't know what the hell happened today. It doesn't feel like the teams were ready. There's so many mechanical issues and problems and setups. And
everyone finished.
Everyone did finish, but
there was some issues, and we can talk about that if you want.
This was the first time in history that the opening race has had no DNFs.
I mean, so it's the third year of this generation of car with this engine in particular. So reliability should be good up there. However, we do know that Ferrari and in particular Carlos had a change of a battery system and.
Lando.
It was Lando, was it?
Yeah,
it was Lando. Okay, sorry. So Lando and McLaren had a change with the battery, and what else was it?
A control unit.
Thank you, a control unit. So they're already used something. So you're right, there has been.
And no, it's not that. But during the race, we had
Mercedes.
Okay, we had Leclerc. I'm like locking up every single corner, turn 4, because he couldn't turn the car every time he turned a certain way.
So they talked about it after the race. So there was a temperature difference between the right and left front brakes of over 100 degrees. And so he didn't know what this brake was going to do compared to this one.
So I'm like, was that because we didn't figure it out in preseason testing to set up the car?
But
that ruined his race.
It ruined his race, and he couldn't
even fight. He couldn't even battle because he was locking up at every turn.
If you want my opinion, it sounds like that particular caliper was either damaged or flawed going into the race, and it didn't get warmed up during the formation lap and then the opening laps. It got overwarmed, and it was damaged.
It's just my opinion. Sounds like Charles Leclerc's luck.
It does sound like that is a typical Charles. I will agree with you on that. It's absolutely his luck.
So for 6 consecutive races, Charles Leclerc has been on the front row, and it's like he can't catch a break. Brazil, he was a DNS. It's just one thing after another. So I'm just hopeful that this year the man can have some good luck. I'm like, fingers crossed. Yeah. But so we had that. We had George and Lewis needing to lift and coast. We had Lewis's seat that broke. We had the Williams overheating. And Albon was saying that there was issues due to, they finally have a heads-up display on their steering wheel. And he was saying that there was issues with the settings. It was glitching during the race. It's we got some work to do. We got a race.
It sounds like the Mercedes engine and electronics are definitely an issue.
Yeah. So.
And we came to it under a full-on. It wasn't like it was it was actually colder than normal, less wind than normal, and so it is surprising that they were now running into these kind of issues compared to when they were running in full sunlight, full heat.
Yeah.
And they were doing some long runs during those times as well, so it is kind of a thing.
That was unusual to see that many, I think, technical issues that were happening during the race. It didn't cause anybody to not finish. We thought Leclerc was going to end up DNFing, just giving during the race. But, I think there was a lot to kind of unpack in that situation. And Lando was complaining about the car too, that the car was cutting out, that the engine was like not doing well. We really saw it with them struggling. So, that was race one with that. And
you know who we didn't see struggling?
Was Max.
I mean, literally was probably drinking tea.
He was like watching the race on the big screen.
He was able to catch. And it's just amazing. He was able to run the first set of his tires, which were softs, 7 or 9 laps or something like that, longer than everybody else. It's just because he was able to get so far out in front that he was able to now baby the car around the corners and really be delicate in all of his moves and really put less wear on those tires. And if he was struggling with those tires, it was oblivious to everybody.
Yeah, and I think too, like...
He's just, I don't know,
You don't hear from him too much, and he was like quiet. The radios were all kind of wonky today, but we didn't hear from him really at all. And I mean, this is the biggest opening time gap between P1 and P2, like in history. 22 seconds. Last year he won by like 10 seconds, 12 seconds. This year by 22 over his teammate. And it's not that Sergio started P5 and had a couple people to overtake.
But at one point it was within like 2 seconds.
But at one point it was within like 5 seconds. I'm like, the announcers were wrong.
You're right, it was. I thought it was, 4 or 5 seconds.
I'm like, but he was close enough that given, if he could, and to end 22 seconds behind, I mean, Max had a whole nother pit stop in the bag. So he won the race, so it was a Grand Slam. He's now tied with Michael Schumacher for the most Grand Slams at 5.
Yeah, that's one thing that Lewis didn't do a whole lot, right? Because he doesn't have that many.
He has a decent amount, but I don't know exactly how many.
Yeah, I just don't think that was necessarily always what his
I mean, pole position, led every lap, he won, fastest lap. Yeah. Like, I mean, just won by 22 seconds. Like, why was he not driver of the day? I feel like because Max is so good and dominant on weekends that we tend to overlook that, and we're like, okay, we're never going to give him driver of the day.
He was definitely worthy of driver of the day.
I think he was driver of the day for me. I think, who got it was Carlos, which I think Carlos gave us the most on-track action.
Well, there was some good action. Lewis was able to pass 2 people. One was on track. I think the other one was doing an undercut. Some people in the back of the field, they were able to do some passes. I saw Nico made some passes. We saw some people have to give up spots too. So I don't know.
I mean, I think the best overtakes
absolutely.
Of the race was definitely
for the front of the field, for a chance to go be on the podium.
Yeah.
Absolutely, it was the Ferrari passing a Ferrari.
I mean, George's pass as well on the Ferrari was very good. But, I think obviously the elephant in the room at Ferrari is that Carlos is out of a seat because Lewis is moving there. So
he took that personally.
He's taken it personally, in the words of Michael Jordan. And he's like, I'm going to get this podium. So I'm going to get this bag, and my teammate can kick rocks, essentially. Now, I don't think he's actually like that, but I think it's fueled him. Like, I think he's like, I'm going to show people that I'm worthy. Like, he kind of has to because he doesn't have a job right now as of next year.
He will definitely get one.
Will be there. I mean, somewhere.
I mean, look, if anything that we know his genes are good. We know he comes from a good family. His father just won the Dakar.
Okay, he was the only non-Red Bull race winner last year.
So yeah, I mean, like he's absolutely in his prime right now. And he could go to any top team. He's already at one of the top teams, so he could transition right over to Mercedes on a 1-year deal, and Toto can keep his eyes on that young kid that he wants. Look,
I don't think they're going to take him at Mercedes.
I don't think they will either. I think he needs to start up like everyone else, go up to Williams or whatever bottom.
He's going to go to Sauber. Yeah, it's going to turn into Audi.
Yeah, look, I like Oliver Behrman. I think he's a good up and coming, but I think he might go like towards the Ferrari route that they go, and I don't know. But yeah, that's a different topic on a different day on a different world. So the race was interesting. Like,
there's just been a lot of pent up demand for Formula One to be
super
back.
excited. I can't believe I was giddy to watch, you
Yes.
know.
Very excited. We've been waiting for it for a long time, obviously. And so, you know, we wanted some good, like, on-track battling.
And there was some.
There was some good overtakes.
But it was just, again, in the
just-
midfield, not for first place.
Right. And I mean, listen, we don't know how the Red Bull's going to perform everywhere, but if this is a reflection of them coming out of the gates, it's a little scary.
Yeah, so these are medium, low-speed turns. Not super, a couple low speeds. Maybe only in one high-speed turn. Mm-hmm. So we'll see. Maybe Jeddah is a different topic for them. I don't know. You know, you say that it's not like the Red Bull car is not like the old Mercedes car, but in a lot of ways it is. They have the side pods that go down low, and then they have what everyone calls is like the overbite, where the top of
The top of the car, the shoulders,
well, that
is Mercedes. They have side pods. You can see
No,
that.
I know, and the side pod is an overbite, where like the top of the side pod is deeper than the lower one, right?
Sure, but they have side pods.
They're gonna slowly probably dial that in depending on their needs for air intake and at each track. I can almost see it. And I look, there was a reason why Mercedes wanted to go that route for 2 seasons.
Right.
They just didn't have the vision to do it the way that.
Adrian Newey does?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a genius.
He's a smart guy.
He's a genius.
And yeah, I would agree, it's not technically a Mercedes look-alike, but it was inspired by what they were going for.
I think there was just
so
many complications when they did it, because on top of everything else, they had the porpoising, they had all this other stuff when they first changed to the new like cars and regulations and stuff. So it's like, you know, I mean, Adrian Newey did it right. He's like, oh, this is a great idea. Let me fix it, you know, essentially.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's crazy.
Another thing that kind of happened is near the end of the race, a few of the racers got on some soft tires and were able to make a push, including the RB team. And they called for, and I want to talk about it because it kind of ended up, the end of the race, something weird happened. There was a little bit of talk at some of the interviews. So the two, Daniel Ricciardo had some soft tires on, and he came out and he was behind Yuki on a set of hards. And they asked for them to swap. And Yuki, we kind of saw in a lot of the radio and things like that, he didn't want to do it.
Well, he didn't do it. So they were both within DRS. Like Yuki was within DRS and Magnussen. Ricciardo was faster. They asked him to switch positions. Yuki didn't switch positions. Nope. So then Daniel was like, okay, thanks. And then they asked him again, we're gonna switch drivers. And he was pissed, like normal, Yuki on the radio, like, what do you mean? This is stupid. And then finally, when they were getting lapped by Max, they swapped driver positions, but it was too late. It was like 1.5 laps left of the race.
And then the softs were burnt.
Yeah. So Yuki wasn't happy. Daniel wasn't happy because they both had something to say on the radio. But then on like the post-race lap.
We'll call it the out lap, the lap to come bring everybody in to finish the race.
Well, before we even say that, I have to make the one comment about, you know, Yuki's behind Daniel, and he's like,
oh yeah,
he needs to speed up. He needs to speed up. He's not even fast. He's not even fast. It's like, oh my God, it's seriously been 3 corners and you're like pissed off.
It was like not even a full lap. And again, the softs at that point now had been burnt out because he was stuck behind Yuki for that long. And I think that is an issue that they need to deal with in the team. It seems like we have a few teams back there on the backside of things that are really dealing with internal conflict. You know what I mean? Because what we know now is the RBs are not the exact replica of a Red Bull.
They're not the RB19.
They're not.
Yeah.
You know, if they were, they would be in 3rd and 4th.
Exactly.
Yeah, and they're not.
So, I don't know. I think it's like Daniel was questioned about it post-race. I mean, from a maturity standpoint, we've heard Yuki get hot-headed on the radio.
So, you know, we saw on video online, like, when they were coming in that lap, like Yuki did some weird maneuvers that kind of cut off Daniel.
He went on the inside and then freaking locked up, cut across, and then ended up trying to come back up on the outside. It was unusual.
Yeah, and then you heard Daniel say, "Oh, we'll talk to helmet."
No, he said, "What the fuck? He's a helmet."
Oh, I thought you said, "I'll talk to helmet."
He said he's a helmet.
Oh, okay, he's a helmet.
And he's like, you know what? Never mind.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
He wasn't happy.
I think it's just a weird situation. Yuki is definitely on the chopping block. I don't know how much longer he'll be able to stay with Red Bull now that Red Bull does not have a Honda engine anymore. And
I don't know. And I mean,
I think he's an okay driver. I think he's good. I think he's hot-headed and once he gets flustered, he's done.
They messed up his strategy for the race.
Which happens to a lot of drivers.
He went from fighting for points to fighting his teammate, essentially.
Yeah.
But it's you have to learn to kind of control your emotions and you're going to risk somebody else on the track after the race is over.
Your teammate too.
Yeah, it's just from maturity,
Yeah.
It was very immature.
And I think Daniel said that in that interview at the end. He's like, it's just, we'll chalk that up to being immature.
Right, exactly.
So, yeah. So there was this whole off season was crazy this weekend. And
this year, everyone who's up for driver contracts is going to be cutthroat.
Yeah.
And they're both up. They only got a 1-year contract to both of them. We already know Liam Lawson feels like he should have had the seat last year.
He probably deserves a seat, and he probably deserves it over Yuki, unfortunately.
Yeah, we know Yuki thinks that he deserves the Red Bull seat.
I'm a firm believer in this, and you guys can tell me yes or no, I think all rookie driver, I think they're, for the most part, if you're a true rookie, you should get 3 years to develop. Now, there's a lot to be said because last year, Nick DeVries came in and only got a half a season, and I wasn't really garping so much on that. However, not everything was his complete fault with Nick DeVries. There was a couple issues with the car and dumb luck.
I mean, the car sucked until the last 5 races last year.
Right, and but he had a lot of expectations because he's older. He's won Formula E. He was a junior champion when he was coming up through the
ramp. He got points on his first race when he tapped in.
Yeah, so I get that, but he should have got a whole year, honestly. And however he would have finished the year, then but again, Red Bull and how they manage their drivers is wild, and
cutthroat.
And we know that. Strangely, Christian Horner has a love affair with Daniel.
He does.
And we saw that. That was the kind of thing that we saw
on Drive to Survive.
You know, and I know that he was definitely surprised, shocked, and angry when Daniel left because it was kind of abruptly, but it was at that time Max was coming up and becoming the #1 driver at Red Bull and really showing that he was deserving to be the #1 driver because he was driving fast. And Daniel thought he was still deserving to be the #1 driver because he had beaten Vettel and pushed Vettel away, and it's I don't know. Now he's going to come back and know he's in second place or in the second seat if he comes back that way, which totally could happen. If Daniel has a good season, if RB can figure out what the hell they just have going on, because there is a little bit of an issue back there. Being not in the points is one thing, but then being 5 places. Daniel was 13th?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, because he made. I think that's
14, 15.
Yeah, I think it was 13th and 14th is where they finished.
Yeah, there's a lot to figure out there. I mean, you look at somebody obviously he's been a rookie for or he's younger. He's a younger driver on the grid, but he's been in the sport for several years now at this point. And you look at somebody like Oscar, who's just so well spoken, doesn't get flustered, doesn't get frustrated. Even when situations where he's been hit or there's been challenges, he's very respectful. When Lewis hit him last year and it was Lewis's fault, they talked after. He didn't get on the radio and start flipping out. And I just think, he's the youngest driver on the grid. From a maturity standpoint, that's why he's out of the top team.
Yeah, and he's a good driver. And I mean, it shows his poise too in the car of being how mature he is, because there was an incident with Lewis in the race where
Well, that was his fault, though.
I know, but look, the fact that they didn't even hit was also a good thing.
That was Lewis's doing.
Well, Lewis
backed out going into that corner because he would have hit him because he locked up and went, tires are cold.
Oscar just came out of the pit with a fresh set of cold tires and was coming full steam deep into turn one while Lewis was coming back from his hot lap of probably getting those tires into a really good spot. And
it gave me Monza 2021
it did,
flashbacks.
Me too.
I was like, oh my God, they're going to hit each other.
They are. I thought so too. And they didn't, but the fact that they didn't hit each other and it wasn't Oscar or Lewis's fault, like they were able to make the moves that they did, and Lewis was able to skirt on by because his tires were in a better position. Yeah. But he gave him a run for his money, and it almost was like, almost got you.
Yeah.
Almost had you.
Yeah.
And so I think, Oscar's a really good driver. I think we got a lot of years with him and Lando being teammates. We'll see them battling for the next few years.
I know. I'm looking forward to it. Yeah. I mean, I think this season has a lot of, exciting things to see on the horizon. Mm-hmm. I mean, my hot take, I guess, was that Piastri is going to win before Lando.
I will agree with that. I
mean, he kind of already did, but I think he's going to win a Grand Prix before Lando.
It's possible. I mean, he already won a sprint, which is the next closest thing.
Right.
I think that it's just a matter of time, and I think the way he's developing, by next year, his third year, I think that every single opportunity will be there if the cars are in a good spot. It's next year is the last year for the engines. So everything should be super reliable, and all the little tricks that even Red Bull's figuring out right now with their situation, maybe all the other cars can figure out everything too, and they should be the most competitive cars by next season.
People are saying already, I mean, it's race one, but people are already saying that Max, based on the trajectory that they're on, will surpass Michael Schumacher's record for race wins next year.
Absolutely. Totally.
And then 2026, he'll beat Lewis.
I can see that happening.
But that's with him winning like every race.
It's got a lot to do with it, but I mean, look, he led every lap here, so he's already 57 laps ahead of everybody.
26 points.
Yeah, so there's a lot to be said. I think we have talked for a long time. There's been so much to talk about. We're back in the season. It's season 4 for us. Honestly, guys, if you made it this far, I applaud you. Thank you very much, because we just talked for probably an hour or so, probably more than about Formula One. And so thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Eileen, for all your insight.
More to come.
There's things that I don't know that you can definitely, you incite me on, and hopefully I do the same. For all you guys out there, we'd love to know what you guys thought, of the race, of
the drama
of everything else that's happening too. I want to know your thoughts too, in particular on Christian Horner. So if you made it this far, please tell us what you thought. Again, please like, subscribe, everything else. We're on social media. Drive to Survive. Please watch, and we can talk about that too. That's it for me. Is that for you?
That's it. Until next time. We'll see you in Saudi Arabia.
Bye.
Bye.